Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for being here. This is the couple of times weekly live stream where it's an interactive live stream, first of all. So that means you can get in the chat box and ask me questions and let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and or just tell me your story and I will react. I will do my best to help you out. But this is where we talk about careers, job search, all that kind of stuff, networking. And the title of today's episode is Your Job Hunt Questions Answered. Ask Me Anything. And obviously that means ask me anything related to job hunt questions. No politics, no religion, none of that stuff, but just for careers, this kind of thing. So if you are between jobs right now, or you are looking to get a promotion or move upwards or anything like that, you're looking to learn about networking as a way to further your career, any of those type of topics, get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering, and I'll do my best to help you out. I really don't have an agenda for what to talk about today. I'm just relying purely on your questions and comments, so keep them coming. Welcome to Dim Gav, if that's how you say that, who has joined my channel as a member. Thank you, Dim Gav. Membership has its privileges. And a shout out to all my YouTube channel members, my Patreons, my super thanks donors, and my participants. Thank you for being here. And hopefully you will get something out of this. Also, thank you to Jack again, for the super chat. Jack says, how do I feel about job hunting? Honest question. Yeah. That's the thing. Job hunting is... I see you got the little donkey emoji there. So is that like the Jack, like as in jackass? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. What do you feel about job hunting? Probably not warm fuzzies, put it that way. Job hunting is not fun. And a lot of people don't like it. And I, for one, don't blame you. It's not a fun thing. It can be a nerve-wracking experience, a depressing experience. This is where we're at, like, aside from like the death of a family member. I mean, this is like where we're at the lowest point in our lives, I think, where people have the least confidence and the least positive outlook, and largely that's all an illusion, because, you should be confident because you're valuable, you're highly employable, and you're going to get something that will work out. The only question is, how long is it going to take? Okay. And if you are here and you're doing some self-improvement and you're trying to sort of validate what you're doing, then you're on the right track, That's what we're here for. So hello to Jack. Hello to David. David is here. Hello to Roxanne. Thank you for being here. Jack says, I have no agenda. Yeah. See, I don't have like a plan of what to talk about. I just rely on your questions and comments, and it goes whichever way it goes, wherever way the chips fall. That's let the chips fall where they may, or whatever the expression is. David says, I reached out to some hiring managers via LinkedIn. However, they redirected me to the job posting of their website. Yes. Okay. So here's the deal. First of all, a couple of concepts here. Number one, direct outreach only really works when they're not posting jobs, okay? Or if they are posting jobs, you go to people that are really high up. Like, you should be going to people high up anyway, just as a matter of course, because they're above all that kind of thing. And the thing is, when you do direct outreach, you're not doing it for a specific job. Like, even if let's say it was a big company, like it was there was like a 2,000 person company, and they have some technician jobs available or whatever, but you maybe started out as a technician, but you're not a technician now. You've worked as like a manager of technicians or something like that. You would do direct outreach, and, it would not be about a specific job. It would be just saying, hey, I'm here, I'm great at this, and if ever you're looking, that's all. And it would go to someone who is not involved in the official hiring process right now. Okay, so that means nobody from HR, because all HR would want to do would be to funnel you into their standard process. They have a process for like, hiring people. They post a job and then they collect applications. The applications go to this grunt way down here, right? Okay. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of a different thing. Okay. It's more like you're talking to people. There isn't a job that's been disclosed. You aren't pursuing any specific job. You're just saying, hey, I would love to work for you. Whatever you guys have, let me know. And then that's it. Have a nice day. That kind of thing. You're not pushing for something. You're not pushing for them to hire you, right? So that's the thing. That's the problem with explaining this stuff briefly. You really can't. There's like a lot of processes, It's like trying to explain to an 8-year-old, how you would, get a job or something, like, how you would apply for a job. Like, they don't understand the concepts involved. Like, what is a resume? They've never heard of that, Why would they need to know what you've done before? You have to explain that. You know what I mean? So this is the problem. That's why I put it all in my course, right? You have to put it into a course. I can't put it in short 5-minute videos. That's a problem I've repeatedly encountered. So one of the things involved in direct outreach is you never go to HR, because what you're really trying to do, in a way, is you're trying to go around their official hiring process, right? For example, imagine the boss who had a brother or a friend, right? And the friend is wanting to get hired into the boss's company. The boss owns the company, and you're a friend of the boss. So what do? You talk directly to the boss. Do you not mention the boss and then put in a job application that goes to an entry-level recruiter, that, you email it to their website? Is that how you would do that? No. You're kind of going around their official process, right? So you talk to the boss, you say, hey, I'm looking for something. I don't know if you guys are hiring. Is there any positions at your company where you're looking for someone who can do what I can do? And the boss says, we might have something, So that's kind of like going around the official hiring process, right? The official hiring process, you'd start at the bottom and then try and move up, right? And this is not that. Direct outreach is kind of like that, right? So you don't talk about specific jobs, and you don't talk to the HR people, right? As counterintuitive as that may be. Jack says, yes, exactly. LOL. You seem to be having a pretty good time there, Jack. Roxanne says, another recruiter called me for the same job, and this time I avoided the salary question and asked to defer until they really want to hire me. Yeah, well, that is the general approach for handling the salary question. You don't want to discuss it until you're at the offer stage, until there's an offer, right? If it's not at the offer stage yet, meaning they haven't settled on you, right? And they haven't decided on you and said, you're the person we want, right? If that hasn't happened yet, they're still talking to other candidates, You don't want to talk salary. You certainly don't want to give a number. It's like the kiss of death, right? I mean, that's another huge topic to go into is the salary thing, because it's kind of like, I'm sure nobody cares about this, but it's kind of like a distillation of, this entire topic of how you place value on an employee, which is a huge topic. I taught a course in university on that called Total Compensation, which was not for executives, but for workers, like how you place value on them, right? And it's a whole course. And that course didn't even scratch the surface, because there's so many methods of doing it. And the bottom line is that there is no right answer, right? It's total pie in the sky kind of stuff. So every company has a different sort of way of doing it. And then you cover the basic methods of doing it, But the bottom line is that, you try and avoid giving a number and talking about it seriously, because the reason they ask the salary question before the offer stage is not to have a serious conversation about, how much money you need and how they can accommodate that and get you to stay, get you to take the job. No, that's not what they're talking about. The only reason they're bringing up the salary question is so that they can eliminate you, right? It's like an elimination tool. Just like they ask, what is your weakness? And then if you reveal something bad, like a red flag, you say, oh, I tend to quit things after a short amount of time. I don't know what it is. I just, I sort of attempt a lot of things, but I just don't have the attention span to stick with it. That's my problem. And then they say, oh, well, thank you very much for telling us that. That's quite, prescient of you to be able to reveal that, and quite candid of you to give us that. Well, I appreciate that. And then they eliminate you, right? Because that's a red flag. Same with the salary question. They say, what are your salary expectations? And the only reason they're asking that is because if you say something that's above a sort of hurdle rate or limit amount, they'll eliminate you. They'll say, sorry, you are wanting too much money. We're going to go with somebody cheaper, right? That's the only reason that they ask that. So there's pressure for you to give a low number so that you don't get eliminated, but then they'll hold you to the low number. They'll say like, well, you said you'd be happy with this low amount of money, so that's what we're offering, So it's, so you don't want to get into it, because whether you give a high number or a low number, you're still screwed. So what you want to do is you want them not to know, so that they will err on the side of caution if they get to the point where they give you an offer. They don't know how much money would please you, so they're going to shoot high because they don't want the offer to be rejected. And because you didn't commit to anything, you could then turn around and ask for more, if they're right at the very end of the process. If you choose to do that, it allows you to do that easily. Jack says, let the chips fall, as Jay Lansman would say. That rhymes. You were a poet and you weren't even aware. So right on. Thank you. I am awesome. I have many years experience being awesome, and it's something that I've tailored to a fine tea. Yeah, and not just physically perfect either. I can also talk quite a bit. Kathleen says, why do online applications still ask for ethnicity, gender, veteran status, and disability? I take it you're in the States. I take it that you're in the United States of America. How do companies really use this information if it's not supposed to be used against you? I'll give you two guesses, Kathleen. Why do they ask for this information if they're not supposed to use it? Why? I wonder what the answer could be. The answer is they use it. They're not supposed to, but they do anyway. After all, what is the point of gathering it if you're not going to use it some way? Yeah, now listen, here's the deal, okay? As my microphone keeps bumping against my keyboard there, here's the deal. Now, depending where you live, there's various different employment standards and labor laws and all that kind of stuff. If you live in the US, some stuff is at the state level, as I understand. Some stuff is at the federal level. I don't know. I'm not an American, so I don't know. But, the point is that officially they're allowed to do certain things, okay? Now, as most people know, unofficially they go ahead and do the things they're not supposed to do, right? A lot of employers do that. I don't know how many do what. I don't have data on this, but I've run companies and stuff, and they do stuff they're not supposed to do. The problem is like if there's no paper trail and it exists only in somebody's head, how do you prove that somebody's done that? Like, a particular sticking point for me is the talk of like bias. It's like we're talking about bias in the question of like, who we're going to hire. I mean, I don't know if there's a right answer. You just have all kinds of different conflicting opinions on that. You have what the law says, right? And I mean, I'm only familiar with Canadian labor laws because I'm in Canada. So like the US is similar, but it's not quite the same. But if it's not like specified in the law, there's all kinds of things that, you shouldn't really be doing and stuff, or that, it's almost like NDAs, like, non-disclosures. It's like, they say, if you sign this, you agree that you're not going to do this, right? It's very easy to get employees to sign those, but to enforce them, it's like quite hard. How do you enforce it in a court of law? You have to go to great lengths to do it. And, it often doesn't make any sense financially, right? So there's a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing, but they do anyway, and they do it unofficially so that there's no record, there's no way of proving that they did it. This is the problem, right? And there's good employers and there's bad employers. There's good employers that they don't do the bad stuff, and there's bad employers that do the bad stuff when they shouldn't. That's the reality. So anyway, where does this leave us? It leaves us here. If you want to get a job with these people, and you're going through the official process, okay, that means that you're following HR's standard process for hiring, okay? That means you submit your application to their posted job and you go through the official channels, right? You have to play by their rules. If you want their job, you have to play by their rules. That's how it goes. Now, you have two alternatives. First of all, you have the right to, if that's not okay with you, you don't have to play that game. You don't have to apply for those jobs. If you want that job, you got to play by their rules because they're the gatekeepers of it. They can hire who they want, subject to the law of the land. They can hire who they want. If you want to be the person they pick, you have to give them what they're looking for. You have to please them. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to play that game. There's other things you can do. First of all, you can not work for those type of employers. Secondly, it might be possible to work for that employer, but not go through that standard hiring process. And this is where, I talk about networking and direct outreach and referrals and stuff like that, where you're going around their official system, right? Their standard process. So you're not submitting an application down at the bottom and then trying to go up, right? You're entering at like a high level, either with direct outreach or networking. You're talking to somebody who probably is an executive, probably is an upper level manager. They have the power to hire you on the spot. That's the reason why you talk to them. And they're above a lot of the, hiring processes. They're all kind of down here. They're up here, right? And HR and hiring is not their deal. You're talking to someone in marketing or customer service or like the head of operations or the head of the legal department or whatever it is that, you're skilled in that your industry is. So, you know what I mean? There may be a way to get into that company going around the official hiring process, in which case you don't have to worry about this kind of crap, But your final option, and the option that a lot of people take, is you just don't work for these clowns and you go and work for someone else that doesn't, collect this information and doesn't use it, right? Not everybody does this. Go work for small business. There's some real advantages in small business that I learned. I worked for blue chip companies for the first half of my career. I worked for small business, small like SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprise, for the second half of my career. Hands down, I love SMEs. You work for a company with 50 employees in it. You're making like pretty similar money, and you have all kinds of advantages. It's really a hidden gem, but they're not as prominent as like the big companies. The big companies are the ones advertising far and wide and making their presence felt. So we get a distorted view of the job market. We think that like, all the jobs are in big companies that you always hear about, right? The large enterprise. Often, depending on where you live, what geographic region, most jobs are not in those places. For example, where I am in Winnipeg, Canada, 85% of people that have jobs are working in smaller companies. But you look at the city, it looks like a regular city. There's a downtown with skyscrapers and, you have industrial parks and you have suburbs and, a standard city. It looks the same. But what you're not seeing is you're not seeing all the smaller employers that really are the backbone of the economy. Sure, when you go downtown, you look at the big skyscrapers, they've got the names on them that you would probably recognize. And if you drive down main roads and you see like stores and stuff, you see all the name brand stores, but that's a tiny fraction of the economy. The real money being made is behind the scenes. It's out in the industrial parks. It's out in, in the business sectors of the city, and it's outside the city, And this is like every city is different, but that's like something that you find to a certain degree everywhere. So there's a lot of business going on out there, and there's a lot of employers. Don't just limit your job search to like job boards. You know what I mean? Especially paid job boards where you just get the big players. Mehmet says, if they ask, what is your salary expectation? Is it okay to tell them I prefer not to discuss this matter before I'm offered a position? Listen, it's okay to say almost anything other than an insult or anything illegal that'll get you thrown out of the building. There are consequences to saying different things, and it is going to vary, right? Now, that's not a bad thing to say. However, it's a bit sort of direct. Like you're saying, I'm not going to answer your question. That's really what you're saying, right? Now, that's not bad, but you see, we have this thing called etiquette where you try, it's like an extension of manners, right? And that can evolve into things like diplomacy where, what you want to convey is I'm not going to answer your question, right? But if you just say that bluntly, most human beings won't like being told that. They'll get offended. It'll feel very like harsh. It'll feel very unwelcoming. It'll give them the impression that you're not wanting to work with them, right? Because it's like an adversarial type thing now. I refuse to do what you say. It's a very adversarial thing. So how can you say that in a different form where you convey the same information, which is nothing, right? I'm not answering the question. But people go away without the impression that, oh, you're taking an adversarial position, you're not working with us, therefore, because I'm getting a first impression of you, I'm getting the impression that you're not a team player, you're not someone that really wants to get along with people, I don't particularly enjoy dealing with you, how can we avoid all of that, right? Is there a better way to dress it up? Yes, there is. There's other ways you could say that, right? For example, some of the more obvious stuff is like, saying like, well, I'd be happy to discuss salary and stuff, but I feel it's just a little bit early right now. This is the beginning of the process and I barely know anything about the details of the role. I'd prefer to talk about this later if that's okay with you. Something like that, right? Like, so we're starting to dress it up, right? So learn about that stuff, right? You've got the right idea, but the problem is if they get a bad vibe from how you say it, it can cause problems. Now, we can be here debating till the cows come home whether that's stupid or not, but that's human nature. That's like learn about diplomacy. Diplomacy is about, if you look at diplomats, they specialize usually in being extremely nice to each other and polite, even though they really, really disagree on major issues, right? And does that mean that they don't ever discuss the issues? No, they discuss them, but they discuss them in such a way that it's all smiles and chuckles and you still get a good vibe from the other person and you still enjoy being around them and talking to them and you want to talk to them more, right? So it's a lot of skill there, and we need to use the Cliff's notes of that stuff to bring into a job interview to tiptoe around questions like this. So the more you can learn about that in your career, not just for this question, the further you will go. Alexis says, do you have any knowledge of the building trades? Would love to hear your insight. About what? I know of them, and I know a bit about them. I'm not just going to talk about them generally. Do you have a specific question? Yeah, like all that stuff is related. First of all, I kind of don't like building trades. That's a subset of like skilled trades, is I think what you're trying to say. Maybe, I think. Because construction is like, you know, they use people in skilled trades, but they only use like a subset of people, right? Skilled trades are like, you know, boilermakers, pipe fitters, you know, industrial electricians, industrial mechanics, machinists, you know, all kinds of things, right? Like, and in construction, you use like a few of those, a couple of those, right? But other things like oil and gas, like maritime, like, you know, there's all kinds of stuff. They use more of them, and they use different ones, right? Roxanne says, should I still apply for a job if they ask for 5 years of experience? I have a little over 4 years of experience and 4 out of 6 of the requirements for the job. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Roxanne, listen, there's no, first of all, there's no guarantee that if you apply, they'll consider you qualified, right? There's no guarantees for anything. There's no guarantees that these requirements are actual requirements. You know, maybe the real requirement is that you have 6 months experience, and then anything beyond 6 months is nice to have, you know? But it's not a deal breaker if you don't have 5 years. You might be able to get away with 2 years, right? 1 year even, depending on your soft skills, depending on your other strengths, right? We don't know what's really going on with these people. All we know is what they've said. So, now what I would do if I were applying for this and I had 4 years experience is I would think, okay, now I have 4 years of like experience outright. Is there any other experience that I have that I could claim is valid experience from a certain perspective, so that I could say that I have 5? For example, let's say it's a technician job. They want you to have 5 years of experience as a technician. So you have 4 years of experience as a technician. Maybe before that, you had a job where you worked around technicians, you know? And you could say, well, I was there for 3 years working around technicians. I wasn't officially a technician, but, you know, I helped out and I was involved in some of their work and I observed their work and I asked questions to technicians about their work. So, you know, that counts for something. So I don't just have the 4 years where I was working. Before then, I was immersed in it to a degree. You know, something like that. Like, is that a lie? It's not an outright lie if you could say that, you know, and then it's just a matter of perspective, right? You know, so, you know what I mean? So I would think about that first, right? And then I would apply for it. Now, of the 6 requirements, you say you have 4 outright, so great. The other 2, do you have a substitute for it? Like, for example, let's say they want you to have 2 years experience in customer service, right? Now, let's pretend that you've never had a customer service job where your title was, you know, customer service associate or anything like that. But, you know, occasionally you had to answer the phone, you had to deal with people at the front desk. Maybe you worked around people who were in customer service, you know, and so you don't have direct experience in it, doing it, but you've observed how you do customer service. You've seen how they handle a variety of different scenarios. You'd have an idea of how to handle them yourself because you've observed others doing it. You know, like, can you twist it and bend it to say, like, well, I don't technically have that, but in effect, I do have the experience observing people, and I have the knowledge of how to do that because I've been immersed in it or exposed to it, right? So you're not going to lie and say you have something when you don't, but you want to be able to say, I do have this and I do have that. So the fact that I don't have those 2 things technically shouldn't impact my ability to do this job? Right? That's the reason why you're going through these mental gymnastics. Right? Okay? So now when you apply for the role, you're going to put, like, if you have 4 years experience, you got 4 years experience, you know, in that. And then what you could do is you could add a line to your resume and say, I have 1 year or 2 years being exposed to it, working in this type of environment. So you're using different words, but, you know, you're saying, I do have this, right? If they ask you any go, no-go questions, like saying, do you have 5 years experience in this? You would say yes, because I got 4 years direct and 2 years indirect. You know, you can play those games. And if that will get you, that might get you to an interview. And then in the interview, you know, if they probe you for this and you explain and they're fine with that, then great. You know, you could be a contender for it. So, you know what I mean? Like, you can do this if you want. I mean, obviously, there's a line you don't cross, and that's where you, like, directly lie. You know what I mean? You know, but you can bend things and you can sort of, like, say, well, this is, you know, indirect experience. You could do stuff like that, right? As long as you don't lie about it directly when they ask you. If you explain in an interview and they're happy with that, hey, you know, there you go, you're in. Alexis says, skill trades, any specific trade you'd recommend over others? No, absolutely not. No, I don't know that. I mean, are you in the States? I'm in Canada, so I mean, I don't know. Listen, before you know what to do, you've got to understand what your goals are, right? No one can recommend, like, what you should do if they don't understand what your goal is. You know what I mean? Like, for example, the reason why you would pick one trade over another can be complicated. Putting aside, like, personal preferences, maybe you'd much rather work on a roof than down a mine. You know what I mean? Like, some people you're not just going to say, well, roofing right now, there's more jobs like this month in roofing, so I'm going to go into roofing. You know, it's like, no, you would base it on other things, right? But so there's a whole lot of personal stuff in there, but there's all kinds of other dimensions. Maybe mining pays more right now, but roofing is more transportable, right? Like, if you know how to work down a mine, you're limited to work in places where they have certain types of mines, right? So you'd have to, you know, the geographic location is very important. You'd have to move and be traveling around. Roofing, you get roofing pretty much everywhere, right? So if you can do commercial, residential, industrial roofs, you know, you will be able to find work anywhere, like, conceivably. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of factors to consider. It's not just about, oh, they're hiring slightly more people here now than over here, so therefore I'm going to commit my entire life to doing this thing. You know what I mean? Okay, and nobody can answer that question except for you. Okay, so you need to get all the information on it and then make a informed decision. What skills are they going to be using in the future? According to you, or according to me, or according to any number of supposed experts or pundits. You know, maybe that would be something to look into. They might not be hiring the most people in that area now, but maybe in 5 years it's going to be booming and you'll have gotten your foot in the door early. I mean, who knows? You know, you could also consider career paths. Some career paths might be a dead end. You know, the best you could hope for is, like, if you're a roofer, I don't know, if you're a roofer, maybe you could have your own roofing company, you know, but that's it. Other things, you could start out as a technician, and then those skills are required on an industrial scale. So, like, you could, you know, start out as like a tradesperson, then you could jump over to working in management in some large enterprise, like industrial thing, you know, and you could have the second half of your career could be like office type jobs, you know, dealing with that, working for large companies, doing analysis on it rather than working with your hands. You know, working with your hands is good when you're young and strong. You know, once you get to like, 50, sometimes things change a bit. And I've worked with like a lot of, aging tradespeople, and I've seen that. It sure would have been nice for them to be able to move out of it, use those skills, but not necessarily work with your hands. So I mean, you got to consider many different things. And you can always move around too. That's the other thing. Life is not this thing where you just do one thing. What makes it interesting is where you do a variety of things, and if you really play your cards right, you could like do several things that all combine to make you like super valuable. Because not only are those things useful, but not many people have that combination, all those 3 or 4 things in one head. That's very rare. That can really put you in demand. There's a lot to consider. Okay, where did I leave off here? So Roxanne just says, should I still apply for a job if they ask for 5 years of experience? I have okay, we did that. Skill trades. You're right. I can combine my 4 years experience with software testing and 2 years experience with web development. Yeah, like, most people have enough stuff that you can sort of, it's a bit fuzzy how you say things, The point is that, can you do the job? And if the answer is yes, also taking into account a little bit of a learning curve, because there's a learning curve for every job. With the learning curve, can you do the job? If the answer is yes, then I don't think any of this stuff is weird or unethical or strange. I think it's perfectly valid. You're welcome, Alexis. Hopefully that was somewhat useful. I mean, I didn't answer any questions. I just brought up more questions, but hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, like, this is a big complaint when people are young and they decide to go off on like sort of life forks in front of you. Should I go this way or that way? Usually when we make those decisions, we're too young to understand like the implications of these decisions. It's like your life could be radically different if you go this way or that way, right? Should I go into the skilled trades or should I do engineering or, whatever, like whatever is your thing. Should I be a mechanic or should I be an electrician or, you know what I mean? And we make those decisions, at least for me, you make those decisions and you're just totally ignorant of, the implications of what it entails. So the more informed you can, what might be a good idea, Alexis, is go out and talk to people in these skill trades, okay? Like something I talk about on this channel a lot is for people to get informational interviews. Now, usually people that come here, they're looking for jobs and they're more introverted types. So, you would do this over social networking, you connect with people. But if you're thinking about the skill trades, maybe a lot of individuals already working in the skill trades. So if you're trying to make a decision between like, should I be a pipe fitter or should I be a drywaller or something like that, go and talk to someone who's been doing drywall for 20 years, and then go and talk to someone who works as a fully qualified pipe fitter, certified pipe fitter, and ask them, what advice would you have to a younger person? Have you ever regretted your decision? Like, is there any concerns? What's the big advantage of doing this? What's the disadvantage? What do you wish that, this industry had that it doesn't? Or something like that, Like I won't know, I don't think other people know. Go talk to the actual people that are doing it in your geographic region, Being someone who builds houses in the Arctic is not going to help you if you're building houses in Florida. You know what I mean? It's a totally different thing. The industry's different. The nature of the work is different. The economy is different, everything. So you need to talk to somebody that's like local to where you are. And that should hopefully give you the best information out there, hopefully. I mean, do other things too. Look at the economy, look at other things, but also see if you can talk to those people. And then you have an idea of what you're getting into. Remember, schools like to paint a very rosy picture of things. They like to, you're almost like their customers. You know, you are their customers, and they want to encourage you. Yeah, you know, take this education, you know, it'll open up all these doors for you, you know, and it'll be all up from here, and, you know, all this. And they want to paint you a very rosy picture so that you agree to go down that path. But they're not the best people to represent it accurately. You know what I mean? So go talk to the people that are living it, that are doing it, and see what they say. And not to like beat this to death or anything, but, you know, I think a lot of people, what they'll probably tell you is they'll say, like, it's good and I recommend it, but what I didn't realize when I was young and I decided to go into it was that you're always working outdoors. And unless you've really done that type of job before, like where you're working outdoors all year round, in all weather, every day of the year, you know, you really don't know what that's like, you know. And when you're young, that's fine. But like once you turn 30, 40, 50, it's like that gets to be a drag, you know. And the problem is that you just don't do this work inside. You know, this work is always outside. Now, if you went into a different trade, sure, you could do that trade outside, but a lot of it might be done inside. It might be like a shop type thing where you're working in the shop. So you can work in a nice, cushy, air-conditioned shop near you. You don't have to go out on location to where they're installing these things necessarily. You can work in the back shop, and those are the sort of more desirable jobs because they pay really well. And, you know, in the winter, you don't have to be out in the elements, and you can do that for many, many years, and that's perfectly fine. You know, or something like that. You know, they'll say like, here's what they don't tell you, or here's how it turned out for me and what I didn't realize. You know, and then you can decide like, is that for you or not? Alexis, that's why I'm always on YouTube trying to gain knowledge from older seasoned people. Yeah, well, yeah, but don't just go on YouTube. Like, actually talk to people face to face, because any kind of like remote thing, I mean, I don't know. I just believe there's no substitute for like, you know, face to face interaction with people. If you really want to know what's up with something, go talk to someone who's doing it. That's like right next to you. You know what I mean? When they talk to you about the places they've worked, you'll know all of them because you're local, you know? And the other thing is, if you don't know the person, if like they're sort of giving out free advice about it, you never really know what conflicts of interest they have. Maybe they're paid by schools to say nice things about that industry or something. You never really know, right? Not to cast suspicions on everything, but it's good to do it locally rather than just look at influencers or look at people that are like already putting themselves out there, because you really don't know what the deal is. Jack sent, holy crap, Jack sent another super chat. Thank you, Jack. Jack says, you sound a bit like Seth Rogen if you put down the pipe and tried and got a job. Oh, okay. I don't know much about Seth Rogen. I've seen a couple of his things like years ago. You know, but I never sort of watched his stuff like regularly. I think I saw 2 interviews he did. He does like the 3-hour interviews with people, right? Like that's his thing. But hey, I'll take it. And thank you. Sup, man. I'm doing fine. Yeah, this is the show where, in theory, we talk about sort of the reality, the gritty reality of careers, and particularly job search, you know, because I found that there's a big disconnect between the theory, recruitment theory, like how it should work, and the reality of how it actually how it goes. And the most obvious example, I think, is where you go down to a lot of job interviews and you're dealing with a recruiter, and the recruiter is just plain rude, and they're not hospitable. They're not welcoming. They're very off-putting. They're gruff, and I mean, my theory is that they've been too long in a position where people have to sort of go cap in hand to them, and beg them for a job, right? They have the power to hire who they want, and that power has gone to their head. And it's hard to stay grounded. It's hard to not become arrogant and let your ego swell, And the other thing is that if you have that power to you have the power to hire, people are not going to call you on all your crap, you know what I mean? And they're used to that. So, I mean, before you even go any further, that's already a disconnect. You see a lot of recruiters and stuff, and they're doing the right thing. They're sort of portraying it as very professional and very dignified, but in the real world, that's usually not what we encounter. We often encounter people just doing a terrible job, being rude, being a bunch of jerks, and it's doubly bad because you're sort of kicking people when they're down. Usually when people are looking for a job, that's when they're at their lowest, and that's the type of people you're pushing around, so it's pretty underhanded in my opinion. Jack says he's like in one good movie. Okay, you're talking about Seth Rogen? Oh, I was thinking about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, yeah, okay, I thought you... Okay, Seth Rogen. Okay, so that's like a political thing. That's an American thing, right? Seth Rogen is one of those American talk show people, I think. He's in one good movie. Okay. Yeah, sorry, man. I'm not really the person you talk to about Americana or that kind of pop culture. Just not my world, Sorry to disappoint you there. But yeah, okay, well, I've come to the end of the chat. So ask questions. We got 19 people here. Let me know what you're struggling with. Let me know what you're wondering about. I usually go for a little bit longer than this, so if we could get a couple more questions, that would be nice if I can help you with anything. In the meantime, I'm just going to remind everyone, if you want to go deeper with my stuff, okay, check out that course. That's where I put all my advice for job search. So if you're really lost and you're confused and you're worried you're not doing the right thing, that's what I'd recommend to start with. If you've been to my YouTube channel, if you've watched the videos in my playlist called Get Hired, that's this big playlist I have. It's got 10 videos in it. Those are the videos I have that have got millions of views on them. Check out those videos. Those will tell you how to answer all the major job interview questions. Beyond that, if you're just lost, you don't know what to do, you're not getting interviews, or you don't know if you're doing the right things, check out that course. Okay, it's a really good bang for the buck. It's a very popular course. And the other thing that you can do that I don't offer on my channel is, if you're worried, I've said this before, if you're worried that you're doing something wrong and you just can't detect it. For example, let's say you've gone to 20 job interviews in a row, but no offers, and you're worried that is there something I'm doing that's just the kiss of death? I'm eliminating myself somehow, or I'm not doing something I should, I can't see it. What is that? And I just want to make sure that that's not what's going on. Excuse me. One thing you can do is book one appointment with a career coach, a career coach of your choosing. A lot of career coaches tend to be recruiters, ex-recruiters or current recruiters. And, they've done tons of job interviews, so they'll be able to tell you, they'll look at your resume, they'll look at they'll do a mock interview with you, ask you questions like you're in a job interview. And they'll give you some honest feedback and say you're saying this, and I think you should maybe try not to say that. Instead, you should say this other thing. Or they'll say what you're saying is fine, but the way you're saying it, your body language, it's really not great. You need to try and really make an effort not to do this, maybe look them in the eye, maybe look more pleasant, more approachable, something like that. Don't mention this in your interviews when you give stories for behavioral questions. Don't say this. So, my understanding is that, one session with a career coach can really help you get that objectivity and give you, some help with that kind of stuff. So those are some tools there that are at your disposal. The other thing I always recommend is mock interviews. So phase 1 is, learn answers to job interview questions, like do that on your own. But then when you think you've got them all memorized and you think you're ready to go, get a friend or family member to do mock interviews with you. So just grab them and say, look, you pretend to be the interviewer and I'll pretend to be the interviewee, and we'll do this like it's a pretend job interview. You can make up the questions, or here's a list of questions. And let's do this. Let's do this as if it's a real job interview. And that'll get you experience, in actually doing it. And you don't just do 1 or 2, you do 2 or 3 a day for at least 2 weeks with a friend or family member. And then by the end of that, you'll be so prepared to do job interviews. You'll walk in there and you won't be really that nervous. It'll be totally under control. You'll be able to think. You'll get the questions right. You'll knock it out of the park. So between all these different tools, you got everything you need to succeed. So it's just a matter of putting them all together. Jack says, I feel like it made sense to avoid his movies. Okay. But yeah, thank you so much for your help. It's just been an utter change. Well, great. Just kind of clicked after. Good. I'm glad to hear it. It's great to see you prospering there, Jack. And thank you for being so gracious and so generous with your super chats. That's great to see. So there's 21 people here. If you have any questions for me that you'd like me to help you with, ask them now. Otherwise, I'll probably be signing off in a couple of minutes. So, because I've reached the end of the chat. So, yeah. I'm also, this is the second time I'm mentioning this, I'm going to be starting up in some way, shape, or form another live stream. It's not about job search, though. It probably won't interest a lot of people, but it'll be about private equity. So if anyone is interested in that, the buying and selling of companies and that world, if you want to get a job in private equity, that kind of thing, I'm going to do something with private equity, maybe like a weekly live stream, maybe a short one, like half an hour or something. And the name I got in my head is Private Equity Rundown. So that's what I'll probably end up calling it. So either this week or next week, more likely, I might have sort of the pilot episode, and we'll just see how it goes. I might be talking to about 5 people, but that's okay. You got to start somewhere. Nita M says, any advice on dealing with job assessments? Some of the questions make no sense to me, and I ended up failing one. For example, one question was, do you like to work alone or in a team? What do you mean by job assessment? So this is something your employer is doing. You're employed and you have a job, and they're giving you like a questionnaire kind of thing, and you have to answer all these questions about how you do your job, and then they give you some feedback. Is that the idea? Nita says they give you a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being strong and 1 being agree and disagree. I put 3 on certain questions because I don't like one over the other. I enjoy both from time to time. Nita says, what's the point of these assessments? Well, if you could just answer my question, so I understand what we're talking about, because, terminology varies across business. This is the problem. Different industries and companies call things by different names in different countries and different places. So job assessments, right? That's like I've heard of something called job evaluation, which is something a little bit different. That's where they look at a job and then they decide what skills are required to do this job, what are the duties that someone would have to perform in this job, and therefore what type of person would best be suited for this job and how much should they be paid, right? Like that's something called a job evaluation. But these terms are very loose, that's the problem. Now, if you're talking about that, they use job evaluations to determine if they're going to post a job, right? What they should say and how much they should pay. What are the qualifications required, right? Now, if they're asking you, if they're giving you a questionnaire that's not about your job so much as it is about you, they're like assessing you. Oh, I see. Okay, Nita says it's a questionnaire you need to answer before being offered a job. Okay, so this is like a psychometric analysis, basically. So what they're doing is they're probably asking you questions about your personality and your social skills and things like this. They could ask you about your technical skills too, but that would be kind of silly since they evaluate that separately with resumes and job interviews. Well, it's okay. In this case, it's simply their attempt to get to know you without getting to know you, right? This is what HR has always excelled at. They're trying to get to know you without actually putting in the time and effort to get to know you, right? So what you end up with is usually a very poor imitation of an understanding of somebody, right? And that's why they ask these things. Now, if it's personality related questions, there is no right or wrong answer. There's only what they consider to be a fit for the job. And every organization, every company decides how they do this. Every company has its own way of evaluating, suitability for their jobs and how valuable those people are. There is no right or wrong way of doing this. It's just what this company does or this organization does. Right? Now, some of that stuff can be gamed, okay? So, for example, you could go to ChatGPT. You know what? Let's just for the sheer hell of it, let's see if we can do this together. I'm going to share my screen. And this is probably going to be pathetic trying to watch me write, but here, let's just see if we can make this work. Okay. Right. I'm going to make this bigger. Okay. What is your job, Nita? Tell me what the job title is, okay? And I'll wait till you tell me that, and we'll do this together, okay? Now, in the meantime, I'm just going to fill some dead air, I suppose. I did a live stream last week where I broke out ChatGPT and showed everyone, like, albeit clumsily, how you can upload the text of your resume into ChatGPT, and then you upload the text of the job description into ChatGPT, and then you create a custom version of your resume that's perfectly tailored to the job posting, right? So when they say we're looking for this, you get ChatGPT to create a custom version of your resume that has rearranged all your stuff, emphasized and de-emphasized things that caters to this particular job. So it highlights all the stuff they're looking for, like prominently at the top and big, and then it sort of downplays things that are unrelated to this job. So that way you look like a better fit, right? Okay, so Nita says property and casualty insurance agent. Okay. So let's just see here if I can do this. Okay. Now, my microphone is really in my way, so I'm going to try and just move this there. How's that? There we go. Okay, right. Now I can actually access my keyboard. Okay. So, I got to think about this because I've never done this before. But if I were completing a job questionnaire, and my spelling is terrible, so just ignore that. Questionnaire that is required for me to be hired in the title of, what was it? Property and Casualty Insurance Agent. Okay, and I'm going to put those in quotes here. Let's just do this baby steps here. What questions can I expect? It's amazing how incompetent I am at doing this when I'm like live on the air. Okay, so now I don't know if this has any bearing to what you experienced, Nita. Okay, but let's just take a look at this thing here. So it's going to ask you about like licensing, about customer service experience, technical and product knowledge, problem solving, ethical scenarios. Okay. Now these are more technical things here, community and administrative skills. Now, how about, that's not quite what we're looking for, I think. The questions are more geared to personality type and soft skills and and sort of determining level of God, why can't I write? Communication skills. You know, I actually use the voice interface for ChatGPT. I highly recommend that to everybody. Once you've used that, it's like just you're stepping into like the 22nd century. That's what it really feels like. Okay, so maybe Nita, possibly, the questions you were asked might have been similar to these. So how would you describe your approach to sales, customer service? How would you explain a complex insurance policy to a client? Describe a time when you had to think quickly or solve a client issue. How do you handle constructive criticism? Tell me about a time you went above and beyond for a client. So I'm not sure if this is similar to the questions that you were asked, okay? Now, let's pretend they were, just for a moment. Okay, from this point on, I'm just going to assume that was the type of questions that they were asking you. Okay, if not, you could do this yourself and like get it to the point, like tell it, get it to the point where it's asking you the right questions. Now, we're going to ask it for the answers, and you say, what types of answers would be perfect for answering a questionnaire like this with flying colors? Something like that, right? Okay, I don't want to give feedback on ChatGPT. Usually you can skip this, but okay, great. You got like 2 different versions of this here, just at random. Usually you can disable one of them. Okay, whatever. Let's just say response 1. Maybe I have to wait till it's done first. Okay, how do you handle rejection? I see rejection. So it's giving you some like, what presumably would be a good answer for these types of questions in this scenario. Okay, going for this particular job. Okay. Now you can ask it, you can skip like the whole first step that I did and get it to generate the questions. You can tell it what the questions were. And you would say like, okay, if I'm going for this particular job title in this industry, what would be good answers to these questions? What would they want to hear? Okay. Something like that. Now, hopefully this is finished. Okay. Whatever here. I prefer this response. So now you get your actual answer to the question starting here. Okay, so I see how do you handle rejection? I see rejection as part of the sales process, blah, 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 right? So you can bone up on these and you can see like, okay, did I answer anything close to what these ballpark answers are? So I encourage you to do that kind of thing yourself. That'll at least give you like a sort of ballpark, sort of baseline to look at. And if you're going for another job, you're applying for another job, you could do this proactively. In fact, I would encourage it. Okay. because every industry kind of has its own preference for, how to handle different things. And each role will have its own mix of different skills, soft skills, hard skills, experiences, things like that, right? So this is what you can sort of probe for and arm yourself with before you get to a job interview. Nita says, go back to 4. Okay. Now, I don't know what question were you talking about this? Teamwork and collaboration? Okay. I'd encourage you to do this yourself. I mean, ChatGPT, it's free. You can just get on there yourself and do this yourself. Like type in the exact things that I typed, only more articulate and more accurate than I typed them in, right? If you're referring to 4 here, teamwork and collaboration, right? So anyway, SGT says, I just had an interview yesterday with these exact questions for Hawaiian Airlines. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's not that many questions, generally speaking. There's only a handful of questions, generally speaking. Once you get into fine details, then there's an infinite number of questions, right? Nita says, that's neat. I will be using that. Thanks. Yeah, it's an incredible tool. I highly encourage everyone here to check out ChatGPT or other chatbots. There are other chatbots, not just ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is pretty good. SGD says, how do I know if I got the job after an interview? Should I send follow-up emails to a recruiter or interviewing them? Here's what I'd say. First of all, it doesn't matter, okay? You've done your best. Now keep moving forward. If these people call you back, great. But you know what? You really don't know what's going on with them. It could have been a fake job for all you know. So don't sweat it. Just keep moving forward. Hopefully they'll call you back. But, there's a law of probability with these things. And, in most cases, we're expecting a no. You're going to be a lot of no's before you get to a yes. So don't worry about it. Now, in terms of how to tell, there's really not too many options here. The one thing that I can say about this is, in a job interview, the way a lot of job interviews are structured is that the last thing that they'll ask is they'll say, do you have any questions for us? Right? And then they answer some of your questions, right at the very end. Now, the only real litmus test I know is to see if it's like, if they had a good feeling about you or not, is if you ask questions back to them and you ask intelligent questions, you say like, what would be the biggest challenge for the person in this role? Or what would be your expectations for them? And, if I were to start in this role, what would be your expectations for me? And say, after the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or you'd say like, what are the big changes coming down the pike for this industry as you guys see them, in the next 5 years? So you might ask questions like this right now. If they're really not into you, if they decided in the first minute that, no, we're not going with this person, they'll probably give you very short, curt answers. They won't really feel like extending the interview and having a free-flowing conversation with you. It'll be very curt, very short, and you'll get a vibe that like, this didn't feel very warm. It didn't feel like they wanted to talk much. So, that might suggest that, they didn't get a super great vibe from it. On the other hand, if you ask questions at the end of the interview like this and they extend the interview for another 20 minutes and they have this free-flowing conversation with you where they're very excited to talk to you and they're very happy to talk to you and they'll get into it and they'll go into detail about these things, that tends to bode better, right? That's the only real way I know of getting any kind of feedback from them. Because if you're dealing with very high-level people, they tend to be very, very good at obfuscating their feelings. You can't tell by body language whether they're into talking to you or not. People at the lower level, like recruiters, it might be a bit more obvious. They tend to be worse at that stuff. So that's the only real way I know. You can follow up. If it's a big deal to you, you could follow up. I'd follow up. I'd send a thank you, a note the same day or the next day at the latest. And then you could follow up about a week later, like anywhere between 3 or 4 days to a week later, you send a message. I would do it by phone. I would call them on the phone. I wouldn't send an email. Now, if you're absolutely afraid of talking to people on the phone, call them in the evening so you get a voicemail, but they should hear your voice, right? It counts much more. You communicate your interest a lot stronger when it's a voicemail or a phone call instead of an email or a DM or anything like that, text. But that's the only real way I know. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, I'm probably going to be wrapping this up now. I want to thank everybody that participated in this. We got some great participation. There's 18 of you guys here. Thank you for joining me. Always remember, you're highly employable and you're awesome. Okay, and I mean that. You're here, you're doing self-improvement. You're out trying to improve what you're doing, trying to compare what you're doing to other people just to get a sort of sanity check. That's good. You keep doing that, you're going to crush this. Don't just get your advice from one source. Get your information from a variety of sources. And make sure that those sources don't all have vested interests. You know what I mean? So I wish you the best of luck. Look in the hidden job market, learn about networking, learn about direct outreach, all that kind of stuff. It'll be to your advantage. You could really open up doors. If you want more of my help, you want to go deeper, check out my course there. And also check out this course here if you're trying to climb the ladder and tack on amazing communication skills and soft skills. That's usually one of the things you have to tack on when you're trying to get promoted up into mid-management or upper management. So that's what that course does. That's for the higher level communication skills. You guys are awesome. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back on Friday. Until then, take care of yourselves and best of luck. See you soon.